Okay, we're back. We're almost ready to start laying out light fixtures and all that other kind of fun stuff. So you might notice up here at the top, I have closed down sheet A101, or drawing 101. I don't need it right now. I'm only in my ceiling and my lighting plan. I'm going to click on model space. That's just to see everything that's going on here. I'm going to use my Explorer window and I'm going to open up the ceiling and electrical blocks. And I'm going to go to my switches. Now, it just so happens that my three-way switch is incorrectly defined. There's a glitch in it somewhere, and everyone needs to fix their own copy, or I've got to repost the whole thing. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, similar to creating a reference, I will hold my right mouse button over this, press and hold my right mouse button, drag and drop. Except this time I want to open it. I could have double clicked on it. I just want to show you a different way of doing things. And yes, it looks like a dollar sign with a 3 on it. This is a three-way switch. This is a switch, if you've ever seen two different light switches at opposite ends of a hallway, but both switches control the lights in the hallway, that's a three-way switch. What we're going to do is we're going to highlight everything, or I'm going to move. We're going to use the move command. I'm going to highlight all my objects, and I'm going to move it from this left-hand end of the horizontal line, and I'm going to left-click. I got a left-click down here in the command line to type 0, 0. Was it the three-way switch? Oh. Okay, that answers that. Okay, you need to type base at the command prompt, B-A-S-E. And it's going to give you this big weird list of coordinates, and from there you change it 0, 0, push return, save it, and close it. Sorry about that, it's just one of those funny little things. I'm going to look at my list of layers in here. Now remember, this entire drawing is focused on um, lights and electrical. There's no furniture that we're drawing in this file. There's no mechanical or no architectural. So most of the layers that we have in here, we can actually delete. And that's what I'm going to do right now. All these architectural layers here, and I've just got existing to remain. You know what? Yeah, I'll do it in pieces. Here's existing to remain. I'm going to come right up here. Here's another option to delete layers, and it also says if you hold the Alt key on the keyboard and press D on the keyboard, that you could delete those layers as well. So I'm going to delete these layers. That's all these A layers. If you get a message saying that the layer cannot be deleted, it means that you've highlighted a layer. You see that A101? I cannot delete that layer because that layer lives in a different file. That's the only reason why I cannot delete that layer. The following layer is not deleted. But I need lights and I need light switches. I'm not doing anything. Well, actually, this is existing. We don't have existing lights and we're not showing existing light switches. So I'm going to highlight all this and I'm going to delete it. I don't need it in this file. Come down here to new construction. Highlight my new construction layers. All these architectural layers, I'm going to highlight those. And I'm going to delete them. And I'm not showing mechanical, I'm not showing plumbing fixtures, and I'm not showing column grids. All I'm worried about in this file are electrical layers. And I'll even go to general. You know what, I'm going to leave all this stuff here. Well, theoretically, title block and title block text. Ooh, typo. I need to fix that. Title block and title block text are for the title block file. You really don't need them anywhere else, so you can delete them. And xref image, function F2. There we go. That's supposed to be img, not ing. It's a little thing. I'm going to go ahead and fix that now. Now, I'm not entirely certain which ones of these layers we will and won't need later, so I'm going to leave all those general layers. Come back to new construction. E-light, electrical light new. I'll double click on that. And from here on out, this is a matter of, I don't need him so I can delete him. This is just a matter of putting lights in place. I'll show you each one of what's going on here. Ceiling fan elevation. If you don't put a ceiling fan in your project, you're not going to need the ceiling fan blocks, but you can tell I have one for plan view and I have one in elevation view. We're not going to do elevations and sections until Thursday, so you don't have to worry about that. So ceiling fan plan. I want a ceiling fan in the master bedroom. So I'm just going to drag and drop. I'm already on my electrical light layer. So I'm dragging and dropping my ceiling plan light. And I do want him centered. We'll put him like so. Sort of kind of centered volumetrically. And once you set the insertion point, you can just press return for all the other values until your ceiling plan or your ceiling fan has been placed. Okay. A light pendant. And the only reason instead of light pendant and light recessed and light surface and light wall is again just so that all my lights are grouped together, so I don't have pendant light, recessed light, surface light, wall light scattered throughout the list of blocks, because there are other things that go on ceilings other than just lights. So a recessed light. These are the lights with the little incandescent fixtures or the compact fluorescent fixtures that you see in the classroom. They're the little can lights. They're the only ones that I will typically leave on during class. So just your typical recessed light, and all it is a circle. I mean, there's absolutely nothing fancy behind it, and that's fine. It's just a very simple light. These types of very simple light fixtures, come on. I mean, there's not a whole lot going on there. Now, the other type of light, or I should say another type of light fixture that you have is called a surface light. And that's a light that is not suspended from a chain. It's not like a chandelier light, but it's not flush mounted up against the wall. I should probably show you some sort of, there needs to be a real world example, and there's not a whole lot to see right now. But they're going to end up going over here. Come on, there we go. I'm just going to click somewhere because I'm getting tired of waiting. There we go. Move him. There we go. That'll do for now. And I'm just going to draw a temporary line here to help me place my next one. I'm going to copy the ceiling fan. There we go. And because these are surface mounted, then I can place them on the surface of the exposed existing slab above. Oops. There we go. Pendant. Incredibly long story short, think of a pendant light as something akin to a chandelier. It's something usually with a chain or some kind of extension where the light fixture itself is going to hang down some distance from the ceiling. It could be 12 inches, it could be 2 feet. That's a pendant light. And then there's a wall light. Any wall fixture or any light fixture that mounts into a wall. And at this point, where do you put them? Well, this is where you need to place yourself in your design, and you need to think to yourself, where do lights need to go? There are even specialized industries. I mean, there are people who are lighting designers, and they will go as far as to say, well, the client has a request for a certain type of light, and I know that light only shines so far at such and such a brightness, and therefore I know based on that characteristic of the light that the lights need to be a certain distance apart, and I need to do them along this way, and they'll even work with the electrical engineers to get the electrical requirements right. But for right now, think of where you need to put lights in your plan. That's what we're focusing on for light placement. And those are the basic types of lights. The next thing that we're going to talk about, there's only a few other things that I need to discuss here. Come back. And that is switch locations and switch types. Now, because we already modified it, I only gave you 3 different types of switches. There's a two-way switch, which is a regular kind of light switch you're used to seeing everywhere. There's a three-way switch, as I mentioned before. You have 2 light switches at opposite ends of a hallway, but both of those switches control the same light. That's a three-way switch. And then you have a dimmer, and you guys probably ought to know what a dimmer is by now. And light switches are usually set, if you're going to put them in a room with a door, for example, a bathroom, you're going to put them against this wall because that, number one, that's where the door opens. That's where you expect to find a light switch. It's going to be right here. Because I have no doors here, but I have curtains, I am going to create them. I want a two-way switch, and I'm just going to place it right here as soon as it shows up. Now, theoretically, they should be perpendicular to the wall. And then a dimmer switch, because I want to control the ceiling fan on a dimmer switch. It will instantly make it a variable speed fan, is what it's going to do. And if you need to know how close to get these things together, come on. There we go. 4 inches apart is about as close as they'll be together and still read. Dadgummit. And you'll notice they're made of there's the dimmer switch and then there's a regular switch, and they're regular letters. They follow the same rules if you need to rotate them. But they follow the same rules as text. So you'll either read them from the bottom edge of the sheet or from the right-hand edge of the sheet. In this case, even though I have them on an angle, they're still going to be they're still readable from the bottom edge of the sheet, so that part's fine. If we need to put a switch, well, for example, if you want to show, in here in the kitchen is a great idea, a switch in the kitchen that will control the kitchen lights. If you need to show the switch along this wall here, I just want a couple of, then they will actually, and this is, I wish I could control this, but I can't. They actually need to be rotated in that direction, and the insertion point is going to be on the outside. Because this is text, there we go. It needs to be read from the bottom or read from the right-hand side. So I just know I'm going to need a couple switches here, so I'm putting a few switches here. And it's still the big question is, where do I put the switches? Well, again, put yourself in the space. Visualize yourself in that space and think to yourself, where do I need to place these switches? If I were in here and instinctually I wanted to reach where for my switches, that's where you put your switches. The last thing that I need to show you guys, oh man, all my switches are on the wrong layer. Switches are supposed to be on the switch layer, so I'm going to highlight them real quick, and fortunately I don't have a whole lot of them. You'll notice that I'm being kind of willy-nilly with my selection. So I'm going to hold my shift key down. I can select my plan as one entire thing. This is one of the reasons why we use references. That way I can manipulate and be a little less careful about how I select objects in my lighting file, is because I don't have to deal with individual teeny tiny lines that make up my floor plan, because that's in a different file. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to change the layer. See how much shorter my list of layers is, and how much easier it is to manipulate when I only have a couple to deal with. Okay, come back up here. I need to make the switch my current layer, and I'm going to zoom in. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little more on this. I'm going to show you guys one more thing, and this is entity creation, and we haven't discussed it before. Most people will use arcs to combine these things, to put these together. I hate it when it does that. Here we go. Come on. Okay, come over here to draw, and I'm going to use a spline. Now, those of you who are familiar with Illustrator, you guys know how to deal with the pen tool and how you can get kind of free-handed arcs and all that kind of stuff with it. This is the closest thing we have to that tool. And they start at the end, and I'm just going to make them go around, and then if they touch the middle, or they could stop right there. And it takes a couple of, it takes an extra click or an extra press of the command key or the return key to get the spline command to actually end. But you can see what I've got here is I've got, instead of just a regular arc, it looks a little more elliptical. It's just a little more aesthetically pleasing. But because we have two different switches, we need to do this 2 different times. And this would work a whole lot faster and a whole lot more smoothly on a computer that wasn't running in a virtual environment. So once again, now you're supposed to touch the edge. Press return. There we go. You're supposed to touch the edge of the fixture. You don't necessarily need to go into the middle of it. And we do not want these lines to cross. It's a whole lot easier to read when the lines don't cross. So there we go. That's placing, so you've got a switch to control the light and a dimmer switch to control the fan. Now I'm going to come over here, because this is one of the few places where we have multiple fixtures. And it appears, it sure feels like my pan is not working. There we go. Now, if I'm going to do a switch, one switch that controls all 4 of these lights, is I'm going to put 3 switches down here along next to this piece of millwork here. I want the 2 of those. I'm going to come down here. I want 1 more of those. Rotate. And now I'm going to move them. Yep, my scroll wheel is not wanting to work. So it's giving me some grief. place that there. Come on. Now, one of these switches is going to be for some lights that I have in front of the millwork. But the other two switches, one's going to control the fan, the other's going to control lights. So I'm going to do this in a, let's see. Yeah, we'll do it that way. I'm going to create another spline. So that's draw, and it's this first little guy right here. There we go. Okay, so I've connected up one light, and I want to connect these other 4 lights to that same switch. So I'm going to pan down this way a little, if it will let me. Come on. There we go. And to connect these 4 lights together, I'm just going to use an arc. I say this is where you may notice how slow my machine is going compared to some of yours. And it's infuriating. It's because I'm running in a virtual environment and I'm trying to do a screen grab all at the same time. And then another arc. There we go. And what I'm going to do to keep these things from being perfect and tangent and whatnot is I actually do want to take this arc. I just want to pull him in a little bit. And then I'm going to use my trim command to trim the. I want it to touch the edge. I don't want the arcs and the splines indicating the wires. I don't want them to extend into the middle of the light fixture. Okay. So that, in a nutshell, that's like really, really boiling down the basics of some lights. So play around with it, have some fun, get the your lights and your switches placed, and in the next video we're going to talk about electrical outlets.